What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Basement Bros Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Ethan.
And I'm your host, Elijah.
And we are back for another exciting week of football. A lot of news this week, especially today with the Commanders, Brian Flores, Tom Brady. It's been a crazy week of football. Plus we know who's playing in the Super Bowl, man. How did you enjoy this last weekend of football?
It was an exciting weekend. Good weekend of football. Enjoyed all the games. I'm ready for the big game. It was a big week in football. A lot of crazy things. But let's get into it.
Yeah, before we get into it, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe to the Nimbus Network channel. Make sure
Right.
we got a lot of content going up, not even just with our page. I know you got stuff coming up with the Somethings project, so make sure you guys tap in with the content, man. You can go ahead and plug it in.
Yeah, definitely tap in with Nimbus Network. You can follow us, Nimbus Network Media, on TikTok. You can follow us on Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube, of course. And but also make sure you follow Basement Bros on all of the things you see below.
Absolutely.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. First we had to talk about it. We had to talk about
the Commanders.
No longer the Washington football team. Washington finally has a name, and it's the Washington Commanders. I mean, the name's not bad. To me, the name's not bad. And the jerseys, I like the jerseys. The jerseys look nice, especially the black jerseys.
I thought the jerseys were cool. The black jerseys were cool. I just didn't like the W on the front of the helmet on the black jerseys. I thought those are kind of ugly, but besides that, I like the jerseys. The jerseys are cool. Commanders sounds to me like it doesn't sound like an NFL team. It sounds like one of those other league teams that So it sounds like one of those teams. But I mean, hey, at least y'all got a name now. Y'all aren't the team that shouldn't be talked about. I know a lot of people feel a different way about the team, but that's just the way everybody felt the way about the Pelicans. And people still feel a way about the Pelicans, but they're used to it now. So they'll get used to the Commanders too.
Man, just called us an XFL team.
Yeah, that sounds like an XFL team though. The Washington Commanders. That sounds like a team that's in a movie, and they have the rights to use any of the real teams, so they made up their own team, and the Commanders is what they came up with.
Right. I mean, I like I said, it doesn't really matter what the name is going to be if we're still, losing. So if we turn things around, then nobody's going to really care about the name.
That is true. That's true. And I just saw something that said that according to I think Fanatics, the Commanders, all their gear is like the number one selling thing, and they're selling more than the Bucks Tom Brady jerseys and all of that stuff. But I guess people have to replace all of their Washington football team stuff so they're ready for next season. So it makes sense.
Yeah. I don't see that kind of maintaining throughout the season. I think it's just going to be
of course
now.
Not.
Once the season starts, it's probably going to go back to normal.
Right.
So I might give me a Commanders jersey, a McLaurin jersey.
I would hope so. Y'all locked in. This is who y'all are now. You don't got no other choice.
Yeah. So shout out to the Commanders.
All right, y'all. For anybody that wants to start a podcast and doesn't know where to start, make sure you check out an app like Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will help you distribute your podcast to other platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So make sure you download the free Anchor app and go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Last weekend's teams, the AFC Championship round, the Bengals are heading to the Super Bowl. Joe Shiesty, Joe Burrow, whatever you want to call him, whatever you want to call him, Joe Burrow is that guy.
I call him
that guy.
I call him JoeBron James.
Joe,
JoeBron James.
JoeBron James.
JoeBron James. That's me.
Joe
That's me. Nobody came up. That's me. JoeBron. If you ever hear somebody say JoeBron James, that was me.
Call him Braun already.
I mean, you see him in the
Golly.
you see the picture of him in the Braun jersey. That
Yeah,
made me think of JoeBron James.
I think he's close to Cleveland. He's from
They're
close.
both from Ohio too.
Yeah.
Ohio
JoeBron
boys. He
James.
really
Oh, that's
JoeBron.
unbelievable. The Bengals come back from a 21-3 lead to come and win 27-24 overtime
Right.
against the Chiefs. Like how shocked were that the Bengals pulled this off? Because at first it looked like the Chiefs were going to run away with that game.
Yeah, I thought the game was going to be a blowout. But I did think that the fact that they didn't score on that on that last drive going into the half, I do think that the Chiefs messed up, and I think that messed up their momentum for the rest of the game, and they lost as a result of that. Of course, it sounds wild to say that play is what caused them to lose, but they were you saw it. They were watching them. They were walking up the field like it was nothing, and I think they lost that game because of bad coaching by Andy Reid. Honestly, I don't think he should have listened to Patrick Mahomes on that play. There's also multiple times the play where they're on their in their red zone and they have a chance to win the game, and they do a pass. They just need a first down. The Bengals don't have any more timeouts, and instead they do a pass play and they lose yards. But the whole game, anytime they ran the ball, they got positive yardage. Yep. So I just think Andy Reid's, and this has been a thing since he's been the Eagles coach, his refusal or his absolute belief in the pass game is what led to his demise. I think they could have won that game if they continued to run the ball, because they're running the ball with ease. So, I mean,
I think that last play was a mistake. You know, instead of going up going into halftime with a 24-10 lead, you still leave it to 21-10 after they just scored a touchdown to end the half. So they have the momentum. If you kick a field goal, you at least decreased a little bit of their momentum. You know, their defense doesn't give you don't give their defense confidence that they stopped you guys going into halftime.
Right, and that was the exact same score that they lost the last time. So you got the whole team going back to the locker room like, man, we just left some points out there. The halftime probably wasn't as hype as it should have been, because imagine if they just kicked the field goal, they would have felt dominant. They would have felt more confident going out there. And I just think it's just miscalculation. I mean, by no means am I calling Andy Reid a bad coach, but I just think it's a miscalculation on his part, and they definitely could have won. But I mean, congratulations to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow did what he had to do. He made the throws he had to do. I mean, he had to make the throws he had to make, and he's just constantly shown that, you know, if given the position to win, he's gonna take that every time. He's not gonna fold, and he's gonna figure out. I mean, he did throw a late pick that could have caused it, but you know, this is his second year in the league, so. Congratulations to the Bengals. I'm happy for them. I saw way too many things talking about the end of the Chiefs. I think that's blown out of proportion.
Not the end at all. They can easily come back and be in the Super Bowl next year. Let's be real.
Right. And they were a few bad play calls away from winning the Super Bowl. And the week before, we were saying how amazing Patrick Mahomes is. And look, sometimes people have bad halves. Every quarterback who's ever played in the NFL has had a bad half in the playoffs before, multiple. So even the great Tom Brady, because there were like 10 years that he did not go back to the Super Bowl. So you know, it's normal. So I mean, I still think that the Chiefs are in a good position to be back here next year, but I'm also super happy for Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
Yeah, give the Bengals credit, because, you know, 2 years ago they were a lottery. They were, I would say lottery like their NBA team, but they had the number one pick in the draft. They won
Yeah,
2 games. They went 2-14. Last year they went 4-12. For
4 and
them,
11, 4 11 and
4
1.
4-11-1.
They
Okay,
tied with the Eagles.
yeah.
We were
Eagles fact.
terrible. Yeah, we had the
But
same record as them. That's why it's crazy. They went to the Super Bowl. We got eliminated in the first round, but it is what
it's
it
it's
is.
it's unbelievable that Joe Burrow can come in and turn their whole franchise around. You know,
Right.
his
Jamar Chase too.
first year he got injured. First year he got injured against us. That was a pretty nasty injury, and for him to
Yeah.
come back and lead his team to the Super Bowl, yes, and with Jamar Chase emerging to the scene as a phenomenal rookie, probably the best rookie receiver we've seen since Randy Moss. I mean, you can make an argument Justin Jefferson, but I don't think he had a rookie season the way Jamar Chase had a rookie season, in my
Yeah.
opinion. The way
Yeah,
he
no,
got
I agree. I
versus
agree. He's had a great he's had a great season. I
right.
mean, there's
He
besides
did
I also think he has the best quarterback out of
right,
he has a
right,
better
right.
quarterback, a more accurate quarterback. But I agree.
For sure,
I
for sure,
still
for sure.
agree.
Yeah. So I mean, I do you think that Joe Burrow emerging and taking his team to the Super Bowl in his second year, will you think that will change the way that teams develop their quarterbacks? So will they be they'll be a little impatient going forward with their quarterbacks, expecting them to be dominant the way Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow has been, and like Mahomes and Allen? Do you think
I
that changes
mean,
the
yeah,
way
I mean
people
we're
evaluate?
already starting to see that change. I mean, look at the Josh Rosen thing for Kyler Murray. They hopped off Josh Rosen for like what was it, a year or 2 years? He was there
Yeah,
for a year or two, and they hopped off him for Kyler Murray. So I mean, we're already seeing it. It's the quarterback wins, and I talk about it all the time. Like I don't personally think that quarterback wins is the most important thing, but I also recognize that having a good quarterback could quarterback a quarterback is the most important thing. Is probably number one when it comes to winning. Like probably having a good quarterback. Well, coaching and the quarterback is up there. You know what I mean? But like
right.
so I already know, and the NFL follows trends. So the fact that Joe Burrow did this is gonna start making people question whether they have what they need to win. But I still think that there's still a lot of teams that's gonna stick with their quarterback, still trying to build around their team. Because look, Joe Burrow was good, but Joe Burrow also has a receiving core. Joe Burrow also
Yeah.
has a running back. Joe Burrow, he doesn't have an offensive line, but he has a defense. I mean, Joe Burrow, you can argue Joe Burrow has everything. Joe Burrow has everything Daniel Jones has, except a competent organization and coach.
I mean, and Joe Burrow makes them look better than they
Better,
were because
right,
without Joe Burrow, they were a 2-14 franchise, 4-11
right,
and one.
right.
So
Yeah, so he's definitely a game changer. I think he's a big culture guy. I think he's one of those people that when you have him on your team, you believe you can win, similar to Patrick Mahomes, similar to Tom Brady. So I mean, I think he's here to stay. But to answer your question, I do think we're definitely going to see a few teams have a weird quarterback situation where they'll draft a quarterback one year and the next year they'll try to find another quarterback. Like you're gonna see it. It's gonna happen. It's already been happening, but you're gonna see it. It's always been happening. Well, ever
right,
since in the past few, ever since Patrick Mahomes was MVP, we've been seeing people fiend for the quarterback position. This guy can change life. Blah blah blah. So you
right,
know,
right, right. Yeah. All right. Yeah. The Bengals' opponent in the Super Bowl is going to be Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams.
oh man.
Cooper Cup, Aaron Donald, Odell, Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller. They have a super team, and they're heading to the Super Bowl after
Yeah.
finally lo- breaking that losing streak against the Niners. What did you think about this game?
I mean, I think they followed a similar mode. Um, they followed a similar mode to the Bucks. Um, they set themselves up where they are just a quarterback away. Um, they got the superstar receivers, they got the superstar defensive tackles, got the superstar corner, and I mean, they have the most complete team this year.
All
When you
right.
look back on all the teams, um, they're the only The only questions I had on the team was the quarterback, and the quarterback is even if I was right about the quarterback, which I'm not saying I am, but let's say hypothetically I was right about the quarterback, like that would still be better than most teams because Matthew Stafford. I never was saying Matthew Stafford was a bum. I just was saying that Matthew Stafford wasn't anything special. You know what I mean? I just wasn't saying I just saying he wasn't top tier, but overall. And I turned out to be wrong. He turned out to be a pretty good to great quarterback, and
Yeah.
so now they have a full team, full roster. And I mean, yeah, I mean, the 49ers proved to be a good challenge. And the 49ers, amazing game. They put up good fight. They're a tough team. But the Rams on the third try, Sean McVay finally got that win. Well, in the last 6 tries from Shanahan, he finally got that win. And
Yep.
yeah, now they're on the way to the Super Bowl. I think this is the last thing for Aaron Donald that he needs because he's already a certified Hall of Famer.
Oh yeah.
And the cherry on top will be a Super Bowl. So
Yeah, it's a lot of kind of narratives that's going into the Super Bowl, especially on the Rams side with Matthew Stafford
right,
and
right.
Odell with their redemption stories and
Even
Cooper
Jalen
Cup.
Ramsey
Yep.
being one of the best. Like this, the Rams winning the Super Bowl does so much for so many of the legacies of so many of their players.
Right. Yep.
Like Aaron Donald gets that. Odell Beckham gets that. He puts the cherry on top. People said his career was dead. The biggest thing he had ever done was the one-handed catch. That puts the cherry on top. Jalen Ramsey, he's been stuck in Jacksonville, finally goes to the Rams. He's been dominant. And then Matthew Stafford was stuck with Detroit. They finally let him go. And so it would just put the cherry on top for so many people in
Yeah,
that organization.
and another for Cooper Cup. If Cooper Cup can, and I think he has a pretty good chance of winning Super Bowl MVP. He could put the cherry on top of the greatest receiving season of all time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's something that could
I mean,
definitely
although
happen.
he didn't get the single season record though. He
No,
didn't.
no, but I mean, they for like postseason and like all time yards for a whole season, including postseason. He
Right,
has the most receiving yards.
right.
So it would
That's incredible.
technically be the greatest receiving season of all time.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
So shout out to the Rams. I mean, all right. So who would you say has probably? I mean, I guess I know kind of know what your answer would be, but who has like the best story going into this Super Bowl between Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Odell? Who would you say has the best story going in?
That's tough. Yeah, that's a tough one. I wasn't wow. The best story.
For me, I would say, like you said, Matthew Stafford. For him to be on Detroit for so long and having his doubters, being one of his doubters, Skip
I
Bayless,
was.
a lot of people not thinking that he was that great of a caliber quarterback, and for him to finally have a team that's worthy enough to be good enough to put him in those big games, and for him to ball out in those big games, not just be carried, but him lead his team to the Super Bowl. And if he wins it, that's going to be a great redemption story. And actually, I think that puts a Hall of Fame stamp on his career.
I mean, yeah, I can see that argument. I can also see. I can also see. I can also see. Someone saying Joe Burrow.
Right? Yeah.
Joe Burrow won the college football championship. He wins that, goes to the league, has a pretty okay first year, gets injured for the rest of the season, comes back and wins the Super Bowl. That'd be the greatest 3-year stretch for college. I mean, from a college to pro football player ever.
Right. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but also Odell Beckham. Odell Beckham has a crazy story. Um, Giants, he never his 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 playoff story has to do with is forever connected to the banana boat where he was caught on Trey Songz's boat before the game,
Justin
and
Bieber.
he had a horrible game. He had a horrible game, dropped mad passes against Green Bay, and Green Bay
Yep.
beat them. And then he went to he played for the Browns. never got to those crazy numbers again. And then he gets injured, and Baker Mayfield has the best stretch of his career during his injury. So people start to blame Odell kind of for no reason. They're just trying to do deductive reasoning, like why when there's no report saying that there's any issue, but people just started to blame him because of maybe because of his antics in New York. But I still feel like it was a little unfair. People start to blame Odell for the reason why Baker's not playing well anymore. So he goes to a new team, and he has the pick of the litter. He can pick any team he wants to. And he picks a team that already has one of the best receivers in the league. He goes to LA, and then now he's in the Super Bowl. So I think he has a pretty compelling story too. It'd be hard to pick. I think Matthew Stafford has a great story, but it's a lot of great stories. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't answer that. I think it's like a 3-way tie on this. You can't lose.
Yeah.
If you wrote a movie about any of those stories, it'd be. I mean, maybe even Joe Burrows has some even Joe Burrows has some like conflict, and he got injured. They picked Haskins over him in Ohio State. Like everybody has an amazing story that got here. And I mean, that's kind of the beauty of the Super Bowl. It's like through all that adversity, you make it, and you got one game. You gotta win or lose it. So
Right. Let's move on to talking about someone who's really familiar with Super Bowls and perhaps the greatest athlete to ever play any sport, Tom Brady. Tom Brady.
Boy, I ain't gonna say athlete, man, but he's the greatest. He's the greatest quarterback of all time for sure.
It's an argument in there.
He's the winningest. He's the winningest quarterback of all time. I mean, athlete of all time for sure.
There's an argument that he's the greatest. I mean, greatest, like we said, there's a difference between greatest, and best. So
I mean, but why don't people ever say like Bill Russell is the greatest? He won like 10 championships or something like that. Like, if we're just going off of championships, then like why isn't like somebody like him the best? Like, I can't say he's the best athlete of all time, because it's like, bro, like he not more athletic than Kareem. He's not more.
I mean, I guess if you want to, I guess you'd have to look at the definition of athlete. But
Right.
Tom Brady's an athlete. You can
For sure.
Not a lot of people can do what he does. So
For sure,
I'm not going
for
to try to say he's not. He's not as athletic as other people in the sport, but there's a lot of athletes that play quarterback that can't do what Tom Brady does.
No, I agree. That's why I think he's the greatest quarterback of all time. But because he has more championships than every other organization. But like somebody like Bill Russell, doesn't he have like 10 championships?
Yeah, but I mean, you also look at level of competition. Like, football is a harder sport than basketball, especially when in the 60s.
But football depends upon more of a team.
They have like 7 Hall of Famers on that team.
Yeah, but football depends upon a team more so. Football depends upon a team more so than basketball. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, but all of the Hall of Famers on his team may win all of those championships too. You know what I mean? There's some people that's on his team who only won 6 of those championships or 4 of those championships, but he has 10 or whatever number he has. He has double-digit championships. I don't know. That's just my thing when people say that. But this is getting away from Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback, most consistent quarterback I've ever seen play football. If there's a small margin of error, you know what I mean? If you had to pick a game and you had to pick a quarterback who was going to make the least amount of mistakes, and I think that's what makes him. And I think that's what a lot of football is. Football is getting a group of people together. They have a common goal. A lot of them are relatively close in experience and talent, but it's just a matter of who can have the least amount of mistakes, or who can cover up the least amount of mistakes. And Tom Brady, over the span of his 22-year career, made the least amount of mistakes in clutch times where you needed him to do what he needed to do. He minimized mistakes, and I think that that's so important at the quarterback position, and that's what separates him from anybody else. Just the consistency he was allowed to. I mean, he was able to maintain throughout all those years. It was
Yeah.
frustrating as somebody
Yeah.
who wasn't a Patriots fan,
Yeah.
but you gotta commend it. It's just like it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's just his level of focus for him to always just stay in the moment and always, even when they're losing, you always see him on the sideline just telling his teammates like, "Come on, let's just keep going." And you see him make these magical comebacks because he always just stayed focused on that one game. He wasn't worried about anything else but just winning. And I mean, even when you watch his documentary, his documentary is actually very good, going in depth to his whole career and going through every situation that he was kind of just going through his train of process in all those games and how he, decided to just dial up and just play his best brand of football is actually amazing. What's your favorite Tom Brady moment? I know he kind of gave you a lot of
Oh,
he
you
gave
know
you
my
he gave you
favorite
a lot of
Tom Brady
clicks.
moment.
Oh yeah,
My favorite Tom Brady moment
You
is
can't.
it's between two. It's between the drop pass in the Super Bowl, or
Yeah,
it's
you
between
can't talk about him messing up. It's
it's
gotta be a
between
bright spot. You over there gonna
nah
say your
nah
favorite
my
Tom
not
Brady moment
favorite
is
Tom
beating
Brady
Tom
moment.
Brady in the Super Bowl.
My favorite
You petty as hell.
that's by far my favorite Tom Brady moment.
Yo,
At no
that's
point
not even a
ever.
Brady moment. That's an Eagles moment.
No, that is a Brady moment because he the ball was passed to him and he dropped the ball in the biggest game, one of the biggest game of his life, and he said it bothers him the most. That's one of my favorite Tom Brady moments. And my other favorite Tom Brady moment is when Brandon Graham strip sacked him and we get the ball back.
That's
Two
so
of my
crazy.
favorite Tom Brady moments.
That is
Easily,
so crazy.
easily. I mean, outside of those, I can tell you some Tom Brady moments that I liked. Um, I mean, I can't tell you where my favorite Tom Brady moment is because I'm gonna be honest. Like a lot of times, I was rooting against Tom Brady. I mean, it got to a point where I wanted them to lose. So, like, I guess my memory or recall on Tom Brady moments isn't as clear. I guess the few times that I found myself rooting for Tom Brady was this last in the divisional round when they were coming back, and I was rooting for him to come back and win
Yeah,
that game against the Rams, because that was my pick for the Super Bowl. So
yeah,
like that's one of my favorite moments, just to see him rally. And it's tight because he retired. That's probably the best way to retire. He retired on a loss, but that's the best possible way you could have lost the game. You were getting blown out. It looked like it was gonna be slow. It was gonna be a terrible game, and he came all the way back, made the Rams sweat, and yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's a great way to lose. Great way to go out. I'm sure he probably wanted to go out on a win, but hey, I mean,
hundred
he went out
percent.
on the top of his game. He still like we let's not lie to ourselves. Like if Tom Brady didn't come back, we still wouldn't have the Buccaneers as a contender to win the Super Bowl. So
Oh, of
it's like
course,
you
of
he
course,
definitely won at the top of his game.
yeah,
I
hundred
would say
percent.
my favorite Brady moment has to be I know it's not really he didn't really win the game. Malcolm Butler did, but the comeback against Seattle, that's one of my favorite Super Bowls of all time. And like they were down 24-14 in the fourth quarter. He came back and won them the
That was a
game.
good Super Bowl.
Plus Malcolm Butler came and had the greatest defensive play of all time. So that's
Yeah.
that's probably my favorite Tom Brady moment. So thank you, Tom. You just gave us some amazing football moments. I mean, the people in the '90s had Michael Jordan, and we had Tom Brady. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
facts.
complaining. I'm
We
not
got to
complaining
see
about anything. We got, yeah,
sustained greatness in
yep,
football.
yeah.
Um,
We witnessed greatness. Like we literally watched greatness. Not a lot of people can say they, there's gonna be stories told about how we watched Tom Brady, and it's gonna be like another player that they try to call the GOAT. We probably gonna be defending Tom Brady the way they defend Michael Jordan.
right.
Yeah. So Brian Flores sues the NFL, the Dolphins, Giants, and Broncos, and accuses them of having racist hiring practices. Now, Brian Flores was the former coach of the Miami Dolphins. He alleged that the owner of the Dolphins, Stephen Ross, offered him $100,000 to lose games to improve their draft stock. And the Giants had already hired Brian Dable, and they still were giving Brian Flores an interview, knowing that they didn't have any intentions of hiring him. And Bill Belichick kind of, told Brian Flores that he didn't even get hired. He texted Brian Flores instead of texting Brian Dable, congratulations, and that's how he found out. So he's suing them off on behalf of black coaches, the underrepresentation of black coaches, especially when the NFL has 75% of black players, and they just keep giving head coaching jobs to white
Right.
coaches. What did you think about this news when it came out?
It's very interesting. I watched his interview on ESPN today. It was very compelling. He even talked about the Broncos, how John Elway and the front office of the Broncos came to his interview late, and some of them seemed like
Mhm.
they were out the night before drinking. They didn't seem interested in interviewing him. Um, and all of these organizations allege that everything he's saying is false. So they're going forward with it. And I mean, just for years, people have been talking about the practices of the NFL. You know, they have the Rooney Rule where they have to bring in at least one interview for one black, no, diverse
It's,
candidate.
it's two
And
now.
then now, yeah,
Two
that was
now.
about to say, then they changed it to two now. So I mean, but since when the Rooney Rule was enacted, there were eight black, diverse head coaches or head coaches of color in the
Yep.
NFL. Now there's only one. So obviously, I mean, it hasn't been working. Um, Not even just for head coaches, but there needs to be more special teams coaches and offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. We see these guys come out of nowhere all the time, and they don't have to have winning records. They don't have to have a history of success in the league. They don't need anything, and they'll get hired by NFL team.
Right.
So that means if you're if your past or your past work as a coach in the NFL or past work as a coach in a college system or something has not worked, then what is getting you that job?
Yep.
That's what you say in the interview. Um, and basically what he's saying is that these are buddy buddy situations where people are just hiring people because they look like themselves. They're not doing it based off of merit or giving these guys a chance. So, and if all of the owners are, there's 32 owners, they're all older white men, then there'll never be a chance for diversity in the head coaching, for head coaches.
Right.
Um, and I mean, I mean, we'll see how it goes. There've been so many conversations about this. He's risking a lot right now. I think he even said it. He's basically risking his own chance of him ever coaching in the NFL again.
Right.
Um, but I hope it plays out, and I hope something starts to change because I mean I do love football, but the NFL definitely has its problems. Um, and I think I would love to see a black owner eventually. And actually, the Broncos are actually up for sale, so there might there've been bids for the Broncos. So we'll see how it all plays out. I'm very interested, and I'm going to be stuck to this story to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's definitely unfair that you see all these, not even just coaches that aren't really qualified, that don't have that much coaching experience. You see these successful offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators easily get jobs, and
Right.
they're white. And
Yeah.
when you see coaches like Eric Bieniemy and Byron Leftwich, who have done great jobs being offensive coordinators, especially in a offensive driven league, you'd think it'd be an easy decision to hire these black head coaches to lead your locker room, especially with young quarterbacks, and they're not even looking their way. Like
Right.
how much success has the Chiefs had in these last 4 years as Eric Bieniemy being offensive coordinators, and he still hasn't had a job.
Right.
But I think that if he was a white guy, he would have gotten hired probably after the first year. After they won their Super Bowl, he probably would have been head
100%.
coach.
hundred
Definitely would have
percent.
been a head coach.
They're talking about
And
Kellen Moore getting uh uh you know interviews and chances and stuff like
right,
that. He definitely would have got a if he was a white guy, he definitely would have had a head coaching job by now. And it's
absolutely.
always hard to do stuff like this because people will always say that it's speculation. people who don't want to you know, accept the reality of the situation will always call it speculation, say that they hire the best people in places for
Yeah,
these jobs,
but that's
but
simply not true.
yeah, it's
It's
not
not
true.
true because if you look at resume, it's no way you're telling me that some of these head coaches like Joe Judge is not. There's no way you're telling me that Joe Judge is more qualified as a head coach than Eric Bieniemy.
And
He was a special teams coach.
the Raiders are about to hire what's the offensive coordinator for the
Josh
for
McDaniels.
Josh
Josh.
McDaniels? He already was a coach. He was terrible as a coach. He had a terrible record as a coach. He had another job. He got hired again as the Colts coach, and before the season started, he
He went
he
back.
he backed out of that job, which is very unprofessional. I remember people having problems with him doing that, and went back to the Patriots, and they're still going to hire him over any other candidates, like black candidates. So like, I mean,
Yep.
it's just always going to be a thing in this league. You got older white billionaires that run these teams, and they have their biases. I mean, I think that's just the way of the world, and we'll see how it plays out in the courts.
Yeah, I'm rooting for him. I think it's sad that he's not going to be able. Probably won't be able to get another job. I hope he does.
Well,
It would be
apparently
smart for a team.
he still has
Yeah,
2 interviews left.
yeah, with the Texans
Yeah,
and somebody else. It would be smart for them to hire Brian Flores, not even just for your team, but business wise, it would be smart to hire Brian Flores. But I mean, I hope he gets a job. He's definitely better than a lot of these coaching candidates
yeah,
that
and
are
I
up
and
in
I
the air.
hope I hope he's not just going at this alone. I hope other black coaches tell their stories, because we've been hearing
Absolutely.
stuff for years about how there's been preferential treatment. So I'm sure a lot of people have stories, and I hope they aren't scared to come out with their own stories, and they come out and support him, because the more support,
Absolutely.
the stronger the arguments. Because look, people are not going to stop watching football. They've
Nope.
made it clear that regardless, people are going to watch football. So the only thing that will
Yep.
they need more testimony from multiple people, in order to like have a backing behind it, and maybe even some players, if they back it, if the right players back it, i.e. quarterbacks, if
Yep.
quarterbacks back it,
Yep.
it's possible. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yep, quarterbacks, and all the basically all the black players. If all the black
Yeah.
that's 70% of the league. So
Yeah, I mean,
if
but
they come out and
all
speak,
of them, all of them won't back it, and plus,
oh yeah, of course, yeah,
I
not
mean,
all of them, but
a lot of these players come from nothing. So like the NFL is saving their life, changing their whole life. So like
yeah,
I mean, it's not everybody's willing to make the risk that Brian Flores is making just because of their situation.
right.
But it's going to take that's what it's going to take. It's going to take some sacrifice
It's going to take it.
in order to make the change. So
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. And shout out to Mike Tomlin, the only black head coach in the NFL right now. For him to have his job for as long as he's at it for over a decade
it's
and
amazing.
still having winning seasons and still taking his team to the playoffs. He's one of the best, one of the most slept on coaches in the NFL. So shout out to Mike Tomlin.
Right. I even hope Mike Tomlin say something. I mean, I know his job is secure, but I mean, I hope he
Yeah.
backs him too. So
Yep, that would be great. All right, so I know last week we talked about our all-star starters, but what did you think about the all-star starters that they named? These are the all-star starters that they have right now. For the West, you have Curry, John Morant, LeBron, Andrew Wiggins, and Jokic. And for the Eastern Conference, you have Trey Young, DeMar DeRozan, Joel Embiid, Giannis, and KD. KD and LeBron are the team captains. So, did you think anybody got snubbed? Were you surprised with some of the picks? What did you think?
I mean, I was surprised by Wiggins, but when you look at his numbers, you see what he's doing. It makes sense. He's having a career year. Um, I was also surprised by Trey Young, but he's having a pretty good year too. And I think Trey Young is one of those favorite picks. He's one of those people like Steph Curry that like
Yep.
his style of play translates to the youth and the people who would probably vote for things like this.
Yep.
So, I mean, it made sense. I mean, John Morant deserved it 100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Everybody else, of course, deserved it 100%. So I mean, these things are kind of you know who the best players in the league are. The thing that surprised everybody was because if you went down that list, you wouldn't have Andrew Wiggins on that list of
Yep.
best players in the league. So that's why people were surprised. But when you go through the wings in the West, I mean, who is there?
Yeah, but do you feel bad for Utah never getting love with this? Because some people were saying that Rudy Gobert could have been an All-Star starter, and Utah gets no love.
Who is he going to start over? Jokic? He's not having a better
No,
year than
not
Jokic.
Wiggins.
No, but they do it by position though. That's how they vote. They vote by
No,
position.
but you can move one of those bigs to the floor.
I don't think that's how it works, honestly.
Nah, that's how Chris Broussard voted. You put
Okay.
Jokic and Gobert as their front court.
Okay, I mean, I get that, but yeah, I guess if you put that in, yeah, I guess, but I think if they have slots for that, I'm not mad at Andrew Wiggins winning in that spot 3, being the best wing because he's the best wing in the West right now. Who's a better wing than him in the West? I mean, besides LeBron, but LeBron even be playing LeBron plays like the 5 now, he's playing the 4 and the 5 now, so. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not mad at it. I think, it's the All-Star game. Who cares, really? Honestly, I mean, who cares who starts in the All-Star game? Honestly, I personally don't care.
Okay, respectable.
Yeah.
Yep. But we reached the end of the Basement Bros Sports Podcast. Thank you guys for listening.
Man.
Make sure you guys go follow these accounts down
Yes.
below. Make sure you go like, comment, and subscribe to the Nimbus Network channel. A lot of good content coming. And make sure you guys watch clips on social media, clips on YouTube. We got a lot of things coming. And yeah, that's
Follow us
about
on
it.
TikTok too, man. Follow us on
Follow us on
TikTok.
TikTok. Yeah, for
The
sure.
debates on TikToks will be lit. If you got anything, if you choosing who, you know what I'm saying, a good nickname for Joe Burrow, go in the comment section and have the best nickname for Joe Burrow. If you got a name better than JoeBron, let us know.
JoeBron.
JoeBron James.
Go ahead. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next week. We'll see you guys later. We out.